get out what you put in. You get out what you put in. Never gonna lose, never gonna win. As long as you're happy, you're always gonna grin. You get out what you put in. You get out what you put in. You get out what you put in.
Ah, there he is. It's Jason Bradbury.
I was singing along.
How are you, dude?
I'm going to get out what I put in. I'm really good, thanks, man. I'm really, really grateful for being on this fantastic show.
Do you know, it's quite funny that I get messaged by somebody that does TV wanting to be on my show. So so absolutely fine. And I am.
Well, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. The power of the grassroots media, which is now where everyone goes. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't watch television anymore. And I'm not saying that in order to be mean or to make some great big clever point. I'm just saying that the content that I find most engaging now is organic and real and homegrown. So that's really no surprise that you know, it's your show. I mean, I was doing BBC Radio Devon yesterday. So I was in the BBC with all the sort of cool tech and amazing studio. And now I'm here, and they both serve different purposes.
Absolutely. Jason, just in case anybody doesn't know,
give
us a little bit of your backstory, because you have been on the TV a few times, haven't you?
Yeah, maybe a few times. Most people know me for a show called The Gadget Show, which I hosted from 2005 for 12 years on Channel 5. And it was one of those kind of overnight sensations. We did the first series on a shoehorn, and then we just hit a nerve. And what we started to ride was the kind of consumer electronics, gaming, technology, internet bubble that just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And really, we never looked back. And we went from being, a niche show just after tea time, like 7 o'clock on Channel 5, to being the biggest show on the network with live events. We did live events at the NEC and the XL. We had 120,000 people. We had a super theater, actually, in the middle with all these brands like Sony and Nintendo and all that exhibiting out. I don't know if Nintendo ever went there, but Sony and Microsoft and all the rest of it on the outside. And we had 6,000 seater theater in the middle. We'd do 3 live shows a day. That's 18,000 people. And we do it for 5 days.
Wow.
And at the peak of the show's popularity, we did 2 of those. We did one at the NEC, and then we waited 6 months and we did one at the XL. And it was huge. But the irony, of course, I'd been bumming around TV for years. I did all kinds of shows literally, Ashley, not bragging, but I've done shows on just about any network you can name, from Discovery to Bravo. I don't know if it even exists anymore. The BBC. I did a game show at tea times on a Saturday on BBC One. I mean, insane. ITV. I did all the triathlon stuff and cycling for ITV because I was a big sports fan of cycling and triathlon. So yeah, that's my background. That's where most people know me from.
And here you are, the pinnacle of your career. You're on live and LinkedIn on your own special show. It's not even one of my regular shows, because I normally broadcast on a. Do you call it broadcasting if you're live streaming? I don't know. Anyway,
I call it
normally
streaming.
I normally stream on a Monday, and I'm fully booked until December.
And
you've got something exciting to tell us that can't wait until then, haven't you?
Yeah, and I, I'm going to wait until you cue me like the pro you are. I don't want to sort of sound like a used car salesman, but I have got something really special to share with everyone in chat. Hello, Sharon. Lovely to see you. And but it was a call that I made to you because really the project that I'm doing is about connecting with people really in the kind of digital broadcasting sphere. The value of what you do and what podcasters do and live streamers do is they don't just interact and ask the right questions, and actually often, I think, ask the right questions where mainstream media maybe, has something to learn. But also these platforms, LinkedIn, which is the first time I've ever done this. I mean, I didn't even really know it was a thing. It was you that put me onto it. When I did your course, I'm an ex-Ashley course member. And yeah, you link directly to the digital asset in question. So I'm running a Kickstarter campaign. I'll be polite and I'll tell you about it when Ashley gives me permission to do so. But the point I'm making is, obviously I want to drive people to look at my project. But if you've got a website or a product or a startup, it has to have some form of digital, ecosystem. And that's why these platforms like yours, are so much better. I mean, I talked about utilizing a PR and playing the celebrity card and going on TV. I mean, it's not unreasonable that I could potentially get onto the sofa of This Morning. I could go to the One Show, and I've done all those shows. Honestly, I've done it multiple times. I must have been on This Morning 5 times and the One Show at least 3 times and lots of other shows. But the issue is you've got to convert someone sat on a sofa, having their TV dinner or having a glass of wine or whatever it is, if it's in the evening, right? To get out their digital device and go to wherever it was that you said. Can I remember what URL he said? What was it called again? Click it in. These platforms, while you're watching bestowing us with all of your LinkedIn knowledge, you can click directly without interrupting what you're saying and go straight to the asset in question. So, from a business point of view, because I told my followers on X that I was doing this show, and it was quite nice actually, because I said, this is one for the business people out there. Because often I'm doing pop culture, cultural content about gaming and movies and TV shows and stuff. But what I don't often do is talk to the business community. But anyway, I think I've made the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's a few people coming in and saying hello.
Dan, Galvin.
Dan's saying, looking forward to seeing this. So hi there. You've actually put a comment in from YouTube. Sharon, who I saw yesterday when I was doing a talk up in Herefordshire, all about LinkedIn. So Sharon knows all about the benefit of LinkedIn. Galvin, hello. I take it you know him.
Galvin is an absolute superstar. He is also a really good, actually, it's almost like he's done one of your courses, because I keep bigging you up, Ashley, because I came to, hello, Galvin. I came to LinkedIn and I was kind of blinded by it. So I have a real instinct for X. I like to call it X, by the way, because I almost feel like there is a snideness in mainstream journalism where they say formerly known as Twitter. But you know what I mean? And I've been on Twitter since day one. I remember on the Gadget Show, right? We did a thing. These new social networks, Facebook and Twitter, which one is most effective? And they got Gail Porter, who had a big presence on Facebook, and me with my burgeoning presence back then on X or Twitter as it was. And we then, that's historically accurate.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah.
And we went to London. I can't remember where we were, and we had a breakdance battle. That's what we did. We did a kind of, what do you call it? When you get crowds of people into a restaurant, what's that called? Mob.
Oh yeah, mob dance, flash dance. No,
flash mobbing.
Yes, that's
flash mobbing. We did.
Yeah.
We did a flash mob around a kind of breakdancing theme. And Gail Porter is not only an absolutely lovely human being and a good friend of mine, who also hosted the Gadget Show when Susie was away for a season, which was mega, but she's also an absolutely hilarious comedian, right? And so she dressed up as a breakdancer. I did, and we had a kind of mock battle with all of our followers. We said to everyone on the platforms, we want to see which platform can get the most followers, right? And we got everyone into this place, I can't remember where it was in London, and we did this whole breakdance battle way back in the day. I've forgotten why I was telling you that. It's a great story, but I didn't know about LinkedIn. I didn't know about LinkedIn. That's my point. Yeah. Galvin does, which is where I was going from. He's got a great instinct for it. He makes a great product that he often, almost daily, talks about on LinkedIn in the way that I should. But really, LinkedIn was a kind of unknown territory for me, and that's why you and I met, because I sought your guru advice.
Bless you. There was loads of chat going on here. I want to get back to this one from Dan.
Hello, Peter.
Dan Backup. He says, so if you're not aware, I'm Dan Egg Fried Cheese.
Oh!
And I put in the pledge for 350 quid. Can't wait to be part of this.
Can I explain what this is? Should we get this out up to... We can talk about the movie. We'll talk about it in detail later, whenever you want. But let me say, so that there's a context.
Let's do this.
Okay. So, right, we'll come back to gadgets and all the rest of it, and whatever you guys want to talk about, and we will talk about your questions in chat. But what I'm pushing at the moment, what my sort of every waking hour is obsessed with attempting to get over the line at the moment is a Kickstarter. So I'm assuming most of you know what that is, but it's
just explain what Kickstarter is for those that
yeah.
don't,
you
including me.
You know what? You have such a good broadcaster's instinct. I'll tell you that right now. That's so BBC what you just did. Is having a very clear understanding of the importance of not letting anything go, having no assumptions, explaining to everyone what it does. You're such a pro, dude. Anyway, it's a crowdfunding platform. So that means that you, rather than you seeking, say, venture capital, or in the case of this, which is a movie, looking for kind of, some investment from the British Film Institute or whatever, you go to the people that are eventually going to buy the movie and watch it, and you say to them, in advance of this being made, would you be prepared to pledge some money to get it done? And that's what crowdfunding is. Kickstarter is one of the crowdfunding platforms, probably the best known one. I've come up with a crazy action comedy, right, that looks and feels just like the movies that many of us in chat will love the most, which is those from the 80s and 90s, with simple storylines, great underdog characters, right? Loads of, unbridled, crazy gags. And I've created a narrative, a story, along with a friend of mine called Mark Felgate, who's a stand-up comedian, one of my oldest friends. We actually wrote a movie 12 years ago, which we never got made. We went all around Soho hiking this script to the production companies. No one was interested, right? And Mark became ill about a year and a half ago, very ill. He almost died, and he was in hospital for 3 weeks. And I rang him in this hospital ward, and it was kind of an attempt to get him feeling positive. And I said, you know what? When you get out of here, this hospital, we're going to write another film, and this time we're going to get it made. And that's where Ctrl-AI-Delete was born. I've put it in chat. I don't know if you can see it. CTRL, like on the keyboard. AI-Delete is the name of the movie. And it's about the global rollout of an AI that goes wrong. So it's set in the modern day, but it's shot very much in an 80s and 90s movie style. A bunch of retro gamers, friends, flatmates are waiting, not unlike me and my mates, for the annual retro gaming festival that happens in the movie in Skegness, obviously. And they're at the expo when this rollout happens. So there's a ticker tape parade, it's on Sky News, whatever, in Times Square, and instantly everything goes wrong. There's a global blackout, power outages across every city in the Western world.
Is this a little bit like because when you talk AI,
yeah,
we all think of the Terminator because that's when the AI takes over. So is it going to be exactly like that then?
No. It nods to Terminator. It nods to war games. It nods to movies like, The Last Starfighter. But what happens is our retro gamers, all that happens is the AI rolls out, and this is like a big comment on our current state of technological evolution. It just doesn't work. And the consequences are massive. I mean, no one, everything just grinds to a halt. The protesters that were out there with their banners, which is what the logo to the movie is. It's a kind of no AI symbol. They turn into looters, rioters. It's like the purge on the streets of every major city. But don't worry, because our retro gamers realize, right, they've got their generator, they've got access to the canteen, they're fine. But they realize that in their retro gaming first generation computers and consoles,
is that a Sinclair Spectrum
ZX Spectrum, and that's an Atari 2600.
I had both of those. How old am I?
You're of the right age. You're of the golden age. I'll just finish my pitch, my elevator pitch. They realize that this technology is just about the only technology that can hack the AI and win the day. And that's what the central idea is of Ctrl-AI-Delete. And it is a love letter to the technology that just made you react like that. There's something special about
there is. You
had a Specky, did you? You had a Specky.
Yeah, I did have a Spectrum, and the tape recorder, and you had to reel it back, and it spent all day doing a bit of code that it would go up and down. I even had a printer, Jason.
What, you had a ZX Spectrum printer?
A thermal printer.
I wish you still had that. I'd buy that off you for my collection. I mean, I was just showing you there. That's the earphone. Oh no, that would be the mic input there. That was a 3.5 inch, 3.5 mil jack. The original jack, like the headphone.
Yeah.
And you whack it in there, and then you whack the other end into your tape player, and as you
That's
said,
right, yeah.
and you load games or programs using an audio cassette. But chat knows this. I'm guessing we're preaching to the converted, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Should we hear from Mark then?
Oh, my co-writer.
Your co-writer.
Have you got a clip? That'd be great.
I certainly have. So I've done a bit of editing, Jason. You sent me a 4-minute trailer, which everybody can see, but I've just cut up a few bits that I thought were particularly funny.
I'm Mark Felgate. I'm a stand-up comic, actor, and the other half of the writing team. I'm also a ventriloquist. Are you really? Yes, I am. No way. Yes way. When the rollout of a new artificial intelligence goes wrong, the world descends into chaos.
Nothing works. Planes fall out of the sky, stock markets and banks crash, there are blackouts, riots.
It gets real! But amid the turmoil, a geeky band of gamers are attending their beloved annual retro gaming convention in Skegness.
Hey!
I want to see this movie. It looks so.
Well, let me just
good.
say, I've just got to talk to chat, because during that I was looking at chat, and the one thing I always feel if I'm on a live stream is I want the people on the camera to answer my question, and I'm getting a real sense that people are connecting to exactly the same thing that you're witnessing there.
Yeah. So Andy's saying he's quietly fanboying. He's fanboying me. He did a drawing. He did a drawing of my show the other day. I'll have to show you that later.
Is this the guy that did the drawing of the sort of mind map?
Yeah.
I saw it. It's amazing. Was that done live?
It was. He was doing it live. I wonder if he's got his pens out now.
Yeah.
Peter Jenkinson wants to know if you forgot 50p for your electric meter. It's very dark in your studio there.
Is that what I mean? This is my dark moody.
All
this
right.
is my sort of. Do you want me? I can change the aperture of the camera if you want. I mean, if it's that bad, I thought I was looking all sort of, kind of, you know. I mean,
you're looking super cool. Yeah.
Can you see me better there?
Yeah. Keep going, says Sharon from Hereford.
Behave yourself. It's black on black. I think it's a black background, because the thing is, you know what it's like. We're talking about the new world of kind of home broadcasting, or simulcasting is what you're doing, because you're concurrently on Kickstarter, LinkedIn and YouTube right now. Is that right?
And Facebook as well. Yeah.
Good God.
Yeah, that's it. So basically BBC, ITV, and Channel 5 or 4, whichever one you want. But that's what I'm doing at the moment.
I'll do that. How's that? A little bit more light there. Is that better for everybody?
Fantastic.
Give me a bit more brightness.
So I love Peter, because he's saying, seriously, it's good to see you on this platform. Defo the place to be. And
that's interesting. Well, that is an interesting thing, because let me say, because I want to just broaden this a second, because you've been so gracious in allowing me to tell everyone about the film. And Galvin actually very kindly put the URL, which is Ctrl-AI-Delete, CTRL-AI-Delete.net, into chat. So we can talk more broadly, because I want to get some knowledge from you. I do find of all the platforms, the hardest one to get sort of purchase on like a grip on content is LinkedIn. And I've got a question for you.
Go on.
While everyone's going short form, while everyone's following the kind of TikTokization of attention spans and just putting out punchy bits of content, you know, YouTube are running to keep up with TikTok's success, as is Instagram with Reels and so on, right? LinkedIn is a kind of island in the storm, because it's still a place for long form. I mean, sometimes LinkedIn posts are like small essays.
Yep.
So why is that? What is it about the culture of LinkedIn that gives people a chance to stop off, have a drink, and really get into some content? I don't understand it.
No, it's a great question. The thing is, right, people are coming to LinkedIn for education,
right,
entertainment, and inspiration.
Right. Okay.
All right. A lot of the people on the platform are trying to run a business or trying to grow what they're doing within the company they're working for. And they're learning all kinds of amazing things from all kinds of amazing people. And these people are just sharing what they do, how they do it, all the knowledge and stuff like that. But because to get onto LinkedIn, you have to put in a lot of work. So you cannot be Jace the Skater, you have to be Jason Bradbury. You have to put in your company details. You have to put in a proper email.
Yeah.
And you, therefore, you behave a lot better than some of the people do on some of the other platforms where you could go in as Jace the Skater and Ash the guitarist or something like that. And I could just be Guitar Man and not even be Ashley Leeds. I am Ashley Leeds on LinkedIn, and therefore I just do what I do. And part of my training is giving people the courage and the confidence to be themselves, because they come onto LinkedIn, they go, oh, it's a professional network. I have to behave professional. I have to talk properly and all of this sort of stuff. And no, people buy from people who they know, like, and trust, Jason. And so, if you want to wear your cap back to front and sit in a dark room, that's absolutely cool, because that's you.
And I do.
Yeah.
I do want to do that. And
it's not
I wear my cap backwards because it just I feel like I'm a truck driver if I do that.
Yeah.
And so I wear it backwards, but I'm not trying to kind of like make a great statement. But in all seriousness, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
When you get engagement on LinkedIn, as I'm sure, and I'm very aware that people are asking questions, and I really do want to answer people's questions. I feel it would be very rude of me not to, but I'll just finish this sentence. Like, when you get feedback on LinkedIn, it's so useful. I've got virtually no followers on LinkedIn. I can't even remember, 1,000 or something, right? I've got 250,000 on X, right? And I love X, and the interaction I get on X is so wonderful, especially for retro gaming, for the very niche area of retro gaming. But it's different. It's instant and it's quick. What I get from LinkedIn is a detailed response, or I get an invitation to chat about an upcoming event, and to just to kind of get below the bonnet a little bit. So that's kind of what I'm going. That's what I'm going for. Can I just answer some questions on there, because I feel bad? I feel like
where are they? Let's go back to the top where we were.
So Oliver said he pledged, and so that is huge, and I have to acknowledge that. By pledging, this is what you do on Kickstarter. It's called a pledge. So you pledge to buy a T-shirt like this one with the logo on the back, or you can pledge to be in the movie, which is what I believe one of the other chatters from earlier, Dan, has done. That was that £350 one that we never really.
Yeah, so Dan's going to be in the movie.
It's going to be a walk-on extra, and that means that Dan will actually be on screen in one of the riot scenes, because the whole movie takes place against the backdrop of global riots. It's called Riot Star, the one he's gone for, because that's why it costs. But by the way, for his 350 quid, Dan, you do realise you're getting the official T-shirt, you're getting some artwork, I think, you're getting the hoodie, you get a load of stuff. Plus, you get to come and hang out on set in front of the movie camera and all the rest of it. And looking at Dan, I can tell you, that is a great face. I love that face. I'm looking forward to making you famous, my friend. And then, it was Peter Jenkinson. He was taking the mickey out of me. Peter is known as the toyologist, Ashley.
The toyologist?
He's the world, and I'm being serious.
Peter so we're going to get him on the show next time, are we?
Oh, you should. So Peter Jenkinson still is, but certainly was a very well-renowned journalist in mainstream newspapers, and often talked about tech and gadgets and toys, then became a specialist in the world of toyology. In fact, I do believe, Pete, you were the first toyologist ever, and he has been a regular on the Gadget Show over the years. He's a really good talker, and what he doesn't know about toys isn't worth knowing.
Fantastic. That is, I didn't know there was such a thing as a toyologist. And yesterday I met a ciderologist as well. So
there's a lot of ologists now.
Yeah, I'm going to stick to the 15-minute guy, because LinkedInologist, I'd get slapped on the wrist by LinkedIn for using that one.
That's a good point, actually.
Right. So yeah, back to this movie, and then we'll talk about gadgets.
Yes.
So I don't know if you saw the comment this morning. I did ask you to ask me what my what's that there is.
It's difficult to ignore the chat because it's so good, isn't it? Still the only one. He's still the only one.
Hoping they have a makeup department.
Galvin, don't worry. Full prosthetics, mate. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
And Andy is saying, so to be an extra, you get extras. So that's awesome too. So I hope you're drawing all of this. Sharon, yes, you could be a numberologist.
Is that So Sharon, I'm getting
Sharon
that
is
you're good.
She's an accountant. She's an accountant.
Okay, right. Okay, I know Sharon because Sharon is a very prodigious commenter, and that's a really interesting thing. Getting back to our previous point, is it's getting people to comment. And that's really important because what I want is a conversation. And what I got from you, from your course, Ashley, was something that sounds so easy and obvious, which is ask questions. I know. So I looked at my content. I was like, I'm just making statements about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Photoologist, well done, Aisling or Ashling.
It's Ashling. Yeah, it's Ashling.
Ashling. I do apologize. I think we're all ologists in one area.
Well, yeah, especially more in Littman. Anyway, we'll calm down on the chat a minute because I want to get more into this movie because Mark seems like a really fun guy, and I'm guessing he's out of hospital and he's better and he's fit. And
so he recovered. He recovered and he's now back at work. His day job. So he's a stand-up comedian, and he's done like huge gigs. Like he's done, all the big comedy clubs, and he's done Montreal Comedy Festival, you name it, right? But he also works as a magician in Hamleys.
Oh, I love.
He's the real deal, and so
that is awesome.
So he's currently working as a magician in Hamleys, and he's going to be playing one of the roles on the movie, which is a role called Ginger Morecambe, who is the venue manager at the Expo Centre, and keeps kind of self-promoting himself as a kind of magician. So that's quite funny in itself. Fantastic. He's in the movie as well as having been my co-writer.
Awesome. The scene. There's a scene with the C5. All right,
Sinclair C5.
You've got the Sinclair's
Spectrum. Electric vehicle. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, that was revolutionary when it came out. No, it wasn't. But
so
you have one.
You have one. It's there. Yeah, it's just there. But I can't. If I turn the camera around, you'll see how untidy the rest of my studio is.
That's all right. That's all right.
Yeah, so I always wanted one as a kid. So in 1985, I would have been 16. So a 16-year-old sees an electric car, which even today looks like a vision for the future. I mean, it was like a prop from Blake 7 or Star Wars, back then. Now, I think if you came up with a Sinclair C5 now and Kickstarter funded it, I reckon you'd be onto a winner, because with the big safe, provision for cycle paths and that in most major cities in the UK, you'd be absolutely.
There we go. This is the next thing. So after the movie, you want to get some rights for that. So let's go and have a look at your lead actor.
Oh yes, Joshua Haddock.
I'm Josh Haddock. I'm an actor playing Smit, our lead. Do you mind if I get through, guys? It's just you're blocking the cycle lane. He's a regular guy, forced to realise his potential in extraordinary circumstances. At its core, it is about connection with our past, with each other, with the simple joys of retro gaming in a world losing its grip on reality.
There we go. Another quick flash at all those.
I like the way you've done. It's nice. Yeah, this is all from the promo, which you can see in its full 4-minute duration on the Kickstarter page.
Yeah, perfect. Now, we saw some old gamers and stuff like that. I'd keep getting you to ask me this question. What was my name when I had a CB radio back in the day? What was my
you were a
handle?
CB? Okay, you were a CB radioer.
Yes, I was.
Okay, and where did you have? Let's just get some context. Was it in your car or was it at home in your bedroom?
Oh no, I didn't drive. I was still a kid. I lived.
Okay, so it wasn't Rubber Ducky.
No, I was at Indian Queens. So on the way to Newquay, and every Saturday the roads would be absolutely chock-a-block,
jammed with
truckers.
And what was your name?
Go on, have a guess.
I have no idea.
It's a retro game.
Oh,
it's a retro
Berserk.
game. And
Space Invader.
No. Look at the color of this room.
It's bright yellow.
Yeah.
Yellow. Pac-Man.
Absolutely. I was
epic.
Pac-Man.
I love that.
Pac-Man.
Breaker 19. This is Pac-Man. I got a rubber ducky on my tail. Did you say things like that?
I certainly did. Yeah. 1-4 for a copy.
Yeah. 1-4 for a copy. I remember. Because I was from Lincolnshire, and actually, if there's one place that's like Cornwall, it's Lincolnshire. It's really similar, same lifestyle, in the back and beyond. And yeah, I remember CBs being a really big thing. I was a radio amateur, which was a bit like CBing, but not quite as cool.
But what? No, was it? It was the next thing up. It was a radio ham. Yeah, I loved it, and I think that was our social media of the era. I used to spend hours on CB radio, and you different times you'd catch up with different people.
You're not the first person to say to me, actually, that, you could have a CB radio sequence in the movie. And obviously the script has been written and we don't have that, but it's not a bad idea. I'll tell you what we do have, which is a kind of rudimentary bulletin board. I don't know if you remember the kind of first iteration of what we would now call social media, or sort of some form of messaging, was bulletin boards. And that would have been in late 90s, early noughties. For me, retro, as in retro gaming,
Space Invaders.
Well, I was going to say it's anything south of the year 2000, right? So south of the noughties, and that qualifies. So bulletin boards would, CB radio would.
Yeah.
Because, of course, I faced a challenge from a script writing point of view, is I have to make it believable that something like this could take on a super intelligence. That I had to make that work. And I reckon I've done it. I'm going to throw the gauntlet out there. I can't go into too many details because that's the hook of the movie, isn't it? How are they going to do this, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But anyway, there we go. 10-4 for a copy, Pac-Man, says Peter Jenkinson in chat.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely brilliant. And so you've got a decent director making all this happen as well.
Let me tell you about that. So back in, I'll set you up for this one. So back in my days when our kids, who are now all teenagers, in fact, my daughter's just gone to university. That's crazy.
You don't look old enough, Jason.
Mate, oh my God, that's a difficult one because I really miss her. But when they were little, we lived in between Twickenham and Richmond. It's a little sort of almost like a village on the outskirts of London called St Margaret's. And what I loved about that period in our lives was you make loads of friends, don't you? Because you've got to take your kids everywhere because they're just like crazy little things. You've got to put them into clubs and that. And I met this amazing couple called Elizabeth and Charlie, and they eventually split up. And Elizabeth decided that she was going to go and seek her fortune, seek her passion in LA. Her daughter, who's called Isabella, was on CBeebies at the time, and my daughter and her were really good friends. So Isabella and Elizabeth, off they went to LA with Charlie's blessing. Bless him, he's a lovely man. And she became a film director, and Isabella an actress. Isabella is our lead actress, Ashley. You didn't know that. And her mom, Isabella Blake Thomas, is the director of Ctrl-AI-Delete.
Fantastic. Well, let's go and see what she's got to say.
The first time I read the script, I knew I had to be involved. I'm Elizabeth Blake Thomas, the director of this crazy adventure. I've directed over 20 full-length feature films, and I can tell you that successful film projects take more than just a good script and technical skill. They demand a deep-rooted sense of passion, felt by every member of the team.
There you go.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
It just looks so good. So, if I want to get involved, what have I got to do?
Okay, well, so Ctrl-AI-Delete.net, which Galvin very kindly put into chat. If someone could do that again, it's Ctrl-AI-Delete.net. That's the easiest way. And go to there. You'll learn all about the movie and see us behind the scenes shooting some of the footage that you've been kind enough to show, which, by the way, the movie sequences, which you've very kindly not shown, actually. You've shown a little bit of it. But some of the sort of gorgeous stuff that we shot in an arcade is really worth seeing. And that was shot on what's called an anamorphic lens. So you might say, well, that looks very 80s if you're looking at Die Hard or, Blade Runner. Often those sorts of movies were shot using an anamorphic lens, which was also very popular in the Western era, in the 60s. And it stretches the image. It's that sort of very, very cinematic look. And it also splits light. So it makes these sort of lovely kind of, I don't know how you'd explain it, but sort of lines of light, which is what you see when the Sinclair C5 in the clip you played earlier goes through shot, right? So you can see all of that, and you can learn about how the process of a Kickstarter works. In essence, you pledge to buy, a mug like this. This is actually one of the mugs that we're offering, or this one. In fact, I think that is a pledge or a reward, as they're called Mug Maverick. So you get both mugs and you get the digital download of the movie, and it's X amount of money. You can buy a cap, That's called Cap Commander. Or it goes all the way up to some really fun and creative ones, which include, because I know you like this. I'm not talking over you, but I know you want this because you mentioned it, right, in your social media. You can get your name, maybe Pac-Man would be the one to go with, based on it being your CB handle, on the high score screen of the fictional arcade machine at the center of the film, which is called Star Dash. So you can get your name on the screen, and we guarantee you that at least one frame, you'll be able to see it. So you're going to be able to stop the movie. Stop it. There's my name. When the movie comes out, and there's Blu-rays and all the rest of it. So that's how you get involved. I think we've talked about the fact you can also buy yourself an extra roll. Sorry to talk over.
Love it. No, it's absolutely fantastic. And Dan has actually put in the link to the Kickstarter.
Thank you, Dan. It's really kind of you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely fantastic. You haven't always been on the Gadget Show, and I want to know a little bit about why you ended up writing. How do you know about writing? Because I know you've written a couple of books, but tell us about that. Where did you start all this writing sort of thing off?
Well, I was an English kid when I was into English, and my dad really loved books and would make me read loads of books, and I did English A level and was good at it, and when and the degree that I did was a film degree, film and TV, but it was actually very academic. So we had practical sessions on cameras and editing. I mean, editing back then, actually, I was editing 16mm film. I was splicing celluloid,
cutting it in half and sticking it together with sellotape.
Yeah, and then we then progressed onto Avid, which was the industry standard for television, and we used TV cameras. We had a TV studio in the drama and film department at Bristol University. It was really good, but I was still writing 25,000 word dissertations for my degree, and so I left Bristol, and then I did lots of different things, which we can talk about. But one of the things that I did was I wrote articles about video games, because I was always into video games. And so I wrote for publications like The Guardian. I wrote for future publishing things like Windows XP Magazine, PC Gamer. And then when I became popular on the Gadget Show, I was approached by a literary agent who said you should do a book, because that's the kind of de rigueur thing. Like when you get a profile, you do a book, right? And I wasn't sure about it, but I talked to my agent, and she said it's actually quite a nice idea. You could do something about, gadgets and so on and so forth. So what I created was a trilogy of books called the Dot Robot Trilogy. And it was about a kid from Peckham who, a little bit like Sharon, is really good with numbers. He's actually a maths genius. And he creates a robot fighting force to fight crime. And it was, I got a 3-book deal with Penguin. And I did the what's it called, the Hay Festival and the Edinburgh Book Festival. It was a really lovely period of my life, and I wrote. Now there were novels. They were, in fact, they were like Harry Potter, but if Harry Potter was into gadgets instead of magic, that's how I would describe it. Fantastic. And then the script writing thing. I'd always been writing scripts and skits because I was in a double act with David Walliams, right?
David Walliams, the tall guy from TV, from Little Britain. I was going to say Britain's Got Talent, but he's not on it anymore. Little Britain, and David and I were just inseparable at uni, best friends. In fact, we set up a comedy club with Simon Pegg, he was in the year above us, and Dominic Diamond, who some people might know was the host of Games Master, who then was at uni. In fact, he was hosting Games Master while he was still doing his degree. And his girlfriend at the time, Mivan Wimore, who went on to be the series producer of Little Britain and head of comedy for the BBC at one point, I think, or something like that, or ITV. And we formed a comedy club in a restaurant in Clifton, which we'd do every couple of weeks. It was called David Icke and the Orphans of Jesus. We were like a troupe. And fantastic. So again, it was writing gags, writing setups, writing little narrative sketches, writing. And you know that I told you, Mark and I wrote a movie. That was while I was on the Gadget Show. We wrote a movie. It was set in Lincolnshire. Its lead character was Smith, which is the lead character of this movie, by the way. And it was a different concept. But yeah, so that's where the writing thing. I've always written and I've always enjoyed writing. I've always encouraged my kids to write, because kids now, they don't write so much, No. They consume, but they don't read so much and they don't write so much. So I think it's still a critically important skill. No, the thing is, right, people watching this now and hearing the story, and if they're listening on the podcast, they're sort of like, oh, that's amazing. but you've done a little bit here and a little bit there, and it's compounded to where you are today. And so it's all little steps, isn't it?
Says the man with the guitars on the wall. We are an accumulation of our skills and experiences, aren't we? And as you get older, I think I'm less about exploring new experiences and more about getting value out of the things that I'm proud enough to say I've already experienced. Maybe having children, maybe becoming a little bit older, maybe ticking boxes frees you from the need to constantly explore. I mean, you could argue that I'm exploring filmmaking. I've got so much to learn, but I've been consuming movies my whole life. I did a film degree. I was in television. I edit every other day because I do loads of social media video content. So it's a skill set that I've kind of got, you know, and the narrative thing as well. That was really interesting, you know, analyzing mainstream Hollywood narratives. That was something so my kind of, I'd say my skill set in the kind of writing partnership between me and Mark is the kind of physics of a script. So I'll give you some interesting examples, right? Most mainstream successful Hollywood movies, and that's a very important caveat there, right? Their first scene is the same as the last scene in the movie, or the final scene in the movie is a kind of mirror or reversal of the first scene in the movie. On page 5, a non-central character defines the philosophy of the movie, usually in one sentence. These things are so concrete, and I tell you how concrete they are. I was chatting to someone on a train recently. I do loads of train trips going up and down the country I talk about AI for a living, as you know, because that's what you help me get the message out about on LinkedIn. And I was traveling one day on a train. There was an elderly couple opposite, and we were chatting. They're asking what I was doing. I said, I'm working on a movie, and we did all this stuff. How do you write a movie? She said, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, you know, it's very structural. And I told them about this idea that the first scene in a movie is often mirrored by the final scene in a movie if it's a successful mainstream Hollywood movie. And she said, really? I said, yeah. I said, and I happened to be 20 minutes into watching Top Gun Maverick on my laptop. So I said, tell you what, turned it round. I said, let's have a look. I spooled it back, and we looked at the first scene in Top Gun Maverick, which is Maverick in a hangar going into a kind of high school locker, opening it, and he pulls his leather jacket out from the first movie, right?
Yeah.
And now I'd seen that 20 minutes before the conversation. The next bit I hadn't seen. I span it right to the end, to the last scene. Sure enough, it was exactly the same, but in reverse. And it's when his love interest arrives on the back of a motorbike. He's in the hangar, and he's only in the hangar, to my knowledge, in the first scene and the last scene. I mean, he might visit in the middle, but you get what I mean? So it's actually very formulaic. And that was one of the things that I brought to the party. Whereas you might guess Mark Felgate, you know, professional stand-up. You've seen him in the clip that you kindly shown. His skill is the punchline. I'll come up with a comedy concept, but he'll make me cry with laughter when he comes up with normally something very rude as a punchline. But so that's how the kind of partnership works.
Fantastic. So here's my notes.
Wow.
From the conference yesterday.
One of Andy's drawings.
It's terrible. I should have been a doctor. But at the conference yesterday, there was a guy called Ashley Nugent, and he's written a book, but he now teaches people storytelling.
Right.
And it's a 12-part that is the hero's journey.
Of course.
Greek
narrative.
Absolutely.
Aristotle.
It's funny that you're talking about that today, because
but of course it's as old as the hills, and we sit around. You know, now we I don't know, we do it on social media, we do it, you know, via whatever, but we did it verbally around a fire, and we did it so that the person going off to hunt the next morning didn't fall over a rock and break their foot. They knew to be careful, for example, because our need to eat depended on their health, right? And we did it by chastising them through narrative or whatever the case may be. But it was and it still is fundamental to all the lessons that feel now, I don't know, they feel peripheral, but actually they're all super important. And if you've got kids, you know that, right? there are so many lessons that you'd think, why didn't you know that? Why didn't you get that going down that hill, sitting on your skateboard, that you might reach 30 miles an hour? Why did that not occur to you? You know, and so it would be a story, wouldn't it, that would enable us to teach the 7-year-old who's about to hurtle off without a helmet on, or whatever it be. It's about the tribe. It's so primordial and it's so ancient, which is why I mentioned Aristotle. In fact, you can look at Aristotle's kind of basic guidelines for effective story writing, and then look at Mr. Beast. Yep. Look at a Mr. Beast video, and it follows the same narrative cues.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, we're running out of time. We haven't talked about gadgets yet. But on my post this morning, I was telling everybody about my favorite gadget, and
I was trying to work out what it was.
It's not electronic, and so many people have asked me what it is. Basically, it sits on my keyring, okay, like so.
Right.
So there it is.
Yeah,
on my keyring. But you can take it off, and it's like a Swiss Army penknife, but it's a key. And then when you open it up, you've got a little serrated bit. You've got a sharp knife. You've got the bottle opener that gets the most use.
Right, and
you've got a little Phillips screwdriver. You've got a flathead screwdriver on the top there, and this is another one that is really useful. This here is that little tiny screwdriver that you need on the top of your spectacles when they get a little bit wobbly. That. And it's all in a little key.
I love it.
And I've always got it with me because it's the size of a key. So
apart
from my mobile phone, that is the coolest gadget that I've got.
I would maybe go a little more high tech than that.
So what's yours then?
Favorite gadget? It changes, like my socks, really. It depends. So I've got the one wheel, which you know because you came to one of my. That's how we met, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes.
One of my events. Or not one of my events, but an event I was speaking at. And I enter the room on it's a single wheel, like a go-kart wheel with a skateboard around it. And it's the closest you can get to being Marty McFly. And that's my one wheel. And then I'd say that I'm a big fan of virtual reality. I happen to have it here. This is my Quest 3 with a special custom headset built onto it. So it's really comfortable. I'm a big fan of VR. I see great things happening.
Yep.
In that field, Ashley. For social media, for content, the Vision Pro from Apple, that's leading the way. And so I'm waiting for it to get this, this sort of size, but that would be one of my favorite categories of gadgets. Yeah.
And do you have one of these?
Yes, I do. It's not the posh one that you've got. I'd show you it, but the old USB-C is so unreliable. It'll go and the whole system will start to crash. But yes, I've got one there. Is that for triggering? I use mine for triggering on-screen assets and things when I'm streaming.
Yeah, so I don't Stream Deck. This is the only streaming I do. But yes, a Stream Deck. But I use it for all kinds of other things, like editing and stuff like that. It just makes life a lot easier. I've got a question from Oliver.
Yeah.
Are you doing a cameo in your own movie?
Hello, Oliver. No, I don't think I will. And it's a difficult one. I mean, I can't say no. I mean, if someone wants to drag me on for because it's funny and relevant, then I'll do it. But in terms of a kind of ego-driven kind of need to be on camera, you'd be surprised. It's not something that I was planning to do because I kind of want this to be. I want other people to play that role. I want them to feel empowered by it. It's actually the same logic that led me to sending the script to Elizabeth in LA. I mean, she'd just done a movie when I sent this script to her for Ctrl-AI-Delete. She'd just done a movie with Mickey Rourke, who is a legend. And I wasn't sure that even though it was me and we're really close friends, that she'd be interested. Because it doesn't matter if someone's your friend, if what they're asking you to take an interest in isn't up your street, you're not going to do it, are you? You'd be mad to do that.
Yeah.
But she absolutely loved it. But I realized that while I wanted to direct this movie, that would have been the role I'd have chosen, Oliver, that actually I don't possess the patience under pressure to do the job of a director. I'm not good at that. And I think I've probably got the technical skill to do it, but not like Elizabeth. Like Elizabeth has knowledge that has been accrued over 10 years of film directing and all the mistakes and all the. So, so I don't think I will, but don't quote me on that.
Well, Dan reckons that you could throw a console into the riot. So you could just be with Dan in the riot scene.
That's Dan. That's quite funny. I could just pop up and then an Atari 2600 hits me on the head. Yeah, yes, but that, I mean, yes. The thing is, the problem I've got is I'm quite sort of pedantic by nature. So I'm thinking, well, the consoles never come out of the building, Dan. They're in the expo. You know, they're safely ensconced there. In fact, we don't want the riot and the expo to interact. That would be bad. That's why the Sinclair C5 plays a role, because our lead character has to leave the expo and go across town to rescue a bunch of patients at the hospital where his girlfriend is a nurse. And without giving too much away, he decides that the Sinclair C5 might be the vehicle for that. So
perfect.
But yes, but I suppose, yeah, I don't know. Maybe getting run over by a Sinclair C5, that would be quite funny. Anyway, stop taking me off on creative tangents.
Yeah, sorry. So going back to gadgets, when you were on the Gadget Show,
yes,
you got to see a lot of things before we even saw them. So what sort of things came out and you thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be absolutely amazing, and it didn't, and vice versa?
Well, ones that did, which is much easier to answer, and I'll come up with ones that didn't in a bit, were things like the hoverboard. You remember everyone, they called it hoverboards. I don't know why they called them hoverboards, but they were like, or swegways, they called them. And there were two wheels connected by a kind of figure of eight thing, and you stood on them and you kind of glided forward like that. Yeah. Which always felt very precarious to me. When we had those for the first time in the studio, I thought, wow, these are going to be massive, right? We had, I tell you what, we had the first really proper VR helmet. So I was an early adopter of what was called Oculus. I had the Oculus SDK, which is a software development kit. I think it was Kickstarter or crowdfunded. I can't remember. And they were then eventually bought by what are now called Meta. They were Facebook group, and turned into the Quest that I just showed you. But back then there was one, so that had been out, but it was nowhere near mainstream. It was good for playing a kind of rudimentary version of Minecraft or something, but it wasn't. When I tried the HTC Vive, right, which had this painting program where you could paint in 3 dimensions using paints, you could make sculptural painted objects or spray cans in midair, right? I did it. And I was pressing my credit card into the HTC Vive guy's hand because it had already been announced. Pre-orders had been taken and kind of stopped because they had enough pre-orders. And I forced myself onto the early list. I had to have it. It affected me on a profound level. I interacted with a whale, and it was so real. And my love affair with VR had started in the 80s with things like the Virtual Boy and Virtuality, which people might remember, and whatever other, was it VR1 that was in the Trocadero in London. But my kind of persistent love of VR was started then with the HTC Vive. So they're two things that I thought instantly were going to be huge. That and Bluetooth was a new thing on the Gadget Show. Wi-Fi was new. YouTube was born during the early series of the Gadget Show.
That's hilarious.
And we did a challenge to see, can we make a viral video? And we actually did it. We got 8 million views, which back then was huge. Yeah, and it was just me doing the breakdancing caterpillar across a Pelican Crossing in London. And but things that I saw that I thought were going to be big that weren't. I did think that 3D television.
Yeah, what happened to that?
Yeah, I thought it would go bigger and better. I thought, because I always like holographic things. I'm into holograms, which is why I like the Apple Vision Pro, because it's the first real sort of augmented reality headset with enough real world clarity to feel like you're looking at, help me, Obi-Wan, you're my only hope, because the Quest 3 has passed through. This is partially what these 3 slots are for. But it's actually in black and white, and then they add color afterwards. So you get a relatively fuzzy, not particularly convincing version of this studio with my Sinclair C5 and you there, Ashley, and all that. And then I can add, it's got a 3D sensor on it. I think it's infrared. I'm not sure, but it can, or is it LiDAR? It can sense 3-dimensionality. So I can add things on the table and they'll stay on the table. And it's very, very cool. The Vision Pro, however, has that in spades at a much, much higher definition. And so it starts to suggest this notion of, the promise of 3D. It's got the old, what they call it, spatial video as well. So 3D TVs, I thought we were going to do it, but they didn't. And it's become a bit of a joke on the Gadget Show, because we now do the Gadget Show podcast, of course, Susie and I, with the old TV production company in Birmingham. In fact, I'm traveling up there this afternoon to do the second series tomorrow. In fact, toyologist Pete Jenkinson in chat has already been on the podcast, and they constantly take the mickey out of me for saying things like 3D TV was going to be huge. So I don't always get it right.
And did the iPhone come out while you were on the Gadget Show, or is that?
Yeah, I was the first guy to test it, and they tested it by having Susie with the N95, the Nokia, which was the leading smartphone at the time, on a bridge. I think it was somewhere in Spain, I can't remember, with a bungee cord attached to our ankles, and they chucked us off this bridge, and we were swinging in this valley. Oh, excuse me, and we had to. It was the first one to turn on the phone without ever having used it, and text "pull me up." That got pulled up, and the other one was left dangling. And I think I should check this with Susie tomorrow. I think I won, and this iPhone was like a thing out of Star Trek.
It
like
really was, wasn't it, when it first came out? It was...
The idea now of having a screen and you swipe it and all that is so normal, but you got to remember that wasn't a thing for a long time.
And do you know the myth that they talk about?
Joe.
Why it didn't have any buttons? Have you heard that myth?
No, why?
I heard that
Johnny Ives, the innovator.
No. What's his? Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs has had a phobia of buttons.
How interesting!
Isn't that bizarre?
But it wouldn't surprise me. There are often very, very unusual, but very sort of domestic reasons for design decisions. I mean, I know this much, that Johnny Ives, who was the British product designer behind the iPod and the iPhone, was really into Star Trek. And that's why it looks a bit like a Star Trek communicator. In fact, one of the themes that I talk about, you might remember it from the keynote that I did when we first met, is the power of the past. An understanding of the past is a great way of predicting the future, because as kids, we're so beguiled by these things. They become part of our kind of mental DNA, our psychological DNA. And then we look to realize that those things in reality. So it's not so strange, is it, that, some of the interfaces that we use now look like something from Blade Runner, or from Star Trek or Star Wars or Back to the Future, even, like the fusion reactor. Oh my God. The Mr. Fusion on the back of the DeLorean, we now know, is a real thing. There's a real working tokamak being built in Lincolnshire, a fusion reactor. I mean, it's just nuts.
That is nuts. That is nuts. I don't know if anyone's got any questions for you before we go, but I can't believe that an hour has gone that quickly, Jason. Is there anything that I haven't asked you?
Well, I'll tell you what, Joe has asked me one, which I should answer, which is relating to something called holotronica. So Joe's question relates to holotronica. So Joe obviously saw me at an event talking about this technology. And this is a bonkers technology. Imagine that you're at a theater and there's a stage in front of you. And on the stage is, for example, a DJ or a band doing their thing. What you won't notice in the holotronica scenario is there is a screen attached to the stage at the very front, right up to the ceiling. It's invisible because it's made out of such fine silver particles that you can't even see it. And the thing with silver is it's got a high refractive index. So what my friend Stuart did, which is what Joe is referring to, he's a DJ, but also an artist. He created this system where if you get two very powerful projectors at two angles, you can create a three-dimensional hologram between the performer and the audience. And it's so good, you'll swear there's an astronaut, like 20-foot long astronaut floating above you. And it's incredible to watch. So what we often get, we predict the future, right? We get what the past possibly, suggested we might get, but it's often produced in a way that we never expected. And that holotronica system would be that. Because I think what we expected is, some kind of, unit that projected up to show Princess Leia or whatever. But actually, Holotronica, it's a silver screen, but it's the same effect.
Awesome. And Andy's just come on to say that he's actually been drawing this show.
Amazing.
So Andy, if you can drop that photo into my DM on LinkedIn, I'll see if I can drop that in the show.
I don't know how you remember all this stuff. I find it so confusing. Like, you'd think I'd be down with it, but like that notion of grabbing that and doing that and swizzling that around would blow my mind. Are you going to be able to show us it right now?
Well, if he was listening when I said that, we might be able to do that. There is a little bit of a delay. So what haven't I asked you, because we really do need to wrap up here, but what haven't I asked you? What do we need to remind people to do?
Well, that's very kind of you. And by the way, thank you so much to everyone in chat, and thank you to you. I'd like to trigger a round of applause, which is what I do when I'm doing my own live streaming, but I can't do that. So huge, big round of applause. No, just go along to Ctrl-AI-Delete.net and have a look. See if you're inspired to get behind this amazing project. Ctrl-AI-Delete.net. If you scroll back in chat, it's in there somewhere, I think.
Yeah.
Are you doing your thing?
Someone's going to put it up for us anyway. Yeah, there it is.
Oh yeah, we've got someone talking about Pepper's Ghost, which is another way that it's almost like a head-up display in an F-16 or whatever. It's a similar technology. You can use it in theaters. It's how they did the Tupac hologram when Tupac and Snoop Dogg did a duet. Obviously, after Tupac had died several years before that, and they used the Pepper's Ghost effect to bring him back, so to speak.
And Dan's put that link.
Thank you, Dan.
And Joe's got a question. When does the filming in Skegness start?
Oh, great, Joe. It's pre-production will start when, my wife's told me I must say when the Kickstarter is funded. I'm touching wood. Kickstarter will be funded hopefully second week in November. Then we'll go into pre-production. We'll start filming in March and April. So between sometime end of March and through April is when we'll be in Skeggy, Joe. Why? Are you an on-screen pledger? If not, go for it, because it'd be good to get you and Dan together.
I don't even
know.
You
got a good beard.
I don't even know where Skegness is and why Skegness.
Your question is simply because you've never been there. If you went to Skegness, you'd be like, okay, now I get it. So I have a huge affection and love for Skegness. I grew up 12 miles away, 18 miles away from Skegness. Used to go there every other weekend. It's an incredible place. It's a bit like Blackpool, but smaller. And if you live in Lincolnshire, you call it Skeg Vegas. I'm just going to say that.
Okay. Oliver's reckon we should pledge to get Jason in.
That's quite a nice idea, Oliver. I wonder if I could add that as a stretch goal. They have these things called stretch goals where you say, if we reach a certain amount of funding, then I will, but I feel that with other people that haven't seen this conversation might think that was a little, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know whether they'd get that as a thing, but Oliver, I will definitely consider that as a stretch goal.
And Joe has pledged, which is awesome.
Oh, great, Joe, you superstar!
And I have now got that image.
Can we see it?
I have got it. Yeah. So let's go in here. This is straight off the press,
hot off the press from Dan's pen.
There it is.
This is amazing.
This is what he's drawn for us.
I love
today.
it. Is it done with like ink? Is it like an ink?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe he might be able to give that away as another pledge. But you need to get in touch with Andy. He's a top bloke.
12-step hero's journey. Look, that's the Aristotelian concept. We've got
Elizabeth
Blake Thomas.
Someone's playing a game there.
I want to take a picture of this. Andy, I would love to get hold of that.
Comedy Club Clifton.
And then Smith and the Sinclair C5 look with
Sinclair C5 is definitely there. Yeah.
And there's Elizabeth with her hat on.
Yeah.
I recognise that. And
there's the Ctrl-Alt-Delete net name on there.
Absolutely amazing.
What a top guy. Andy, what a way to end the show.
Isn't it? Yeah. Thank you, Andy.
Absolutely amazing way to end the show. Let's go.
Watercolour and ink. There you go.
Right. Okay. So let's call that a day. Jason, always lovely having a chat with you. Thank you for coming on the live show. I hope this has helped. Thank you to everybody for all those amazing comments. Yeah. Absolutely superb. And will you come back and let us know how the Kickstarter's doing?
I've got to. I've absolutely got to. It would be rude of me not to. So whenever you're ready, when I've got the good news in first or second week in November, I'll let you know. And then yeah, and maybe maybe we could do something. I don't know what we could do, but you might have to come up and have a look at the sets when it's in action or whatever. Let's talk about how to move this forward. Thank you, Sharon.
Absolutely. I'm speechless. I've just had a lovely time. It's lovely catching up with you, and see you all soon. Cheerio, Jason.
Thanks,
Bye-bye,
guys.
everybody.
Bye.
You get out what you put in. Never gonna lose.